So hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome. This is Ramola D from Ramola D Reports, and we have a real treat for you today. I'm here, as you can tell, with Andrew Devine and with John Wanoa, and we're here to talk about issues of sovereignty and freedom that are going to be of interest to all of us worldwide. So hopefully this panel will go out worldwide. People are requested to share this widely. First of all, welcome Andy, welcome John. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Ramola.
So, Andy, perhaps I can throw the floor open to you and you can introduce John to us a little bit. I should tell people that Andy does sort of what I do, which is I run podcasts, and that's what Andy does as well. He does a lot of broadcasting. He's a reporter and podcaster and broadcaster, and, with a strong interest in matters of human rights, freedom for all, sovereignty, and keeping it on the up and up and helping people worldwide. So I'm really pleased to be talking with Andy today, and we're very much on the same page in terms of these issues. So Andy, if you wanted to talk a little bit about who John Wanoa is and where he's coming from and what the particular matter is here today that I know John and you want to address, that I hope we can co-host and, ask John questions about shortly.
Sure, yeah. I mean, so in the search of a solution, because obviously when you realise, and when I took that one step inwards and realised, and my eyes were opened, and I could never go back. So when I saw the issues that we've got in this world, I mean, my first obviously was going down on the pharmaceutical route and realising who is and how evil the people that we've got in this world that's controlling this world. When you see that, is obviously, when you've got children, you've got to look for a solution. You've got to look for a solution for your children's future. So if we don't do something now, nothing ever will. So going down all the rabbit holes that I went down, I was trying to think, well, how can we do it? Because we don't have any courts. There is no way of getting any justice. There is no way of getting any remedy. So and I was looking, it was horrible to see what's being done to everybody. And that they just couldn't see how they was being deceived and being tricked, and that they was just being walked into these foreign vessels in dry dock, so to say, that are just harvesting the whole world. So I was looking for a solution to how to get some justice and because there is no law at the moment. It's a lawless society. It's all commerce, and
there is no law. Yeah. Absolutely.
So so I was looking at by going down my rabbit holes, I'd found out that the Rothschilds had used all wars of bankers' wars, and that they used Napoleon to bankrupt England, and and to get into the royal family, and that's the Queen was not the real true line, and I saw all these things, but then I came across John, and then I came across that flag which is behind me there, and so when I met
the United Tribes flag. Did you want to talk about the flag a bit?
Yeah. So that flag, basically, I mean, that flag was created with the kings of England, the King of England, and the paramount chiefs, which was the natives, the originals, so this was a 50-50 contract. So looking back into the fact that the Rothschilds had bankrupted England and gone into the royalty and shied off a separate line, I looked at that flag as that flag was the solution that was left by the kings, that they'd created that contract with the originals on the land as a savior for the world. And one day the people would realize, and what John was putting out, it just made perfect sense to me, because we could correct the line. And that's what John's basically saying. We can take the ship back to where the line broke off, can bring it back to the king's line and correct everything, and then turn all those, everything that's been done to the people of this world, and we can turn all those people that have benefited by that corruption, then turn them into the debtors, and bring the people back into the true sovereignty by giving them the sovereignty back, by giving them the protection what was in that flag, so that they have the safe passage anywhere in the world. So I focused on what John was doing, because this was also about King's Bench, because now we can actually have a court. Can you hear me, John?
To go out.
Yeah, you just drop out and come back in. That's in his microphone. We've had this.
Oh no!
I've got to do it.
Yeah, drop out and come back in, John.
I'll just button out and come back in again.
Okay, I'll just mute you out so the way you do it. So yeah, so bringing back the King's Bench was a formula to bring back a court that actually you'll be able to hear and try a fact, because the bar associations, we know, all work on they all swear on a private oath, that no fact will ever be heard or tried in a court of law. So
Right.
to bring back the King's Bench now, this is where, because the creation all comes down to is where the authority is coming from. Now, ultimately, we say about kings, and I'm not because the king is a servant. The king is the servant. The king is there for the people, and the people are the crown that the king is ever to wear. The crown is the people's sovereignty.
The crown is the people's sovereignty. That's right. Sovereignty is important. Yeah.
So, and the king is only the king because the people have said that, if this was a true king and an honourable king, which is going to be bringing back that justice by presenting a King's Bench, then it was going to be, this is where we're going to actually hear now justice. We're going to see justice coming in there. And the other beauty of it was about the flag, because it was the only true land flag. Because they took, when that contract was created, they took the mast off the ship and they stuck the mast in the ground. So they made the land the ship. They made the land the actual vessel.
Ah, interesting.
So now that flag is the only true land flag. Therefore, that flag's on the actual land itself. Now, all other flags, on my logical workings out, are all maritime flags. They're all sea flags. Now, all the flags have to come over the sandbar. So all the vessels have to come over the sandbar on the land, because all courts are foreign vessels in dry dock. So they're all ships in dry dock. And they have to come over the sandbar. Now, the sandbar is equal to this bar association. So the bar association, anyone to go into one of these foreign vessels have to go through the bar association to get into these courts, because these courts are foreign vessels in dry dock. But on a King's Bench court, we don't have to go into their foreign vessels. A King's Bench court can be held out in the public, out on the land, straight up to God, as the natives they used to do, you see. So we can hold our courts in the open and for the world to see, which is how court should be. Because the reason they've been getting away with what they've been getting away with so long is because all their courts are private, and they're hiding it in the private, and they're hiding it from everyone to see the truth. Because when I was because I'm in Greece, so the amphitheatres here in Greece, they used to be the courts.
They're open, right?
They used to, so the audience used to watch the actual court going on. So if the judge did something wrong, the people would right there and then go and grab that judge and take him out and dispose of him. So justice had to be out in the open, and the true jury was always the people. It's always going to be the people. It's a people's court. Everything's got to be the people's court. A king, if it's to be a king, is going to be the people's. So is it going to be king, as in the sense as king? And I know a load of people thinking because I'm not necessarily. It's nothing about royal. It's nothing about anything. But all the laws that have been created, there's some beautiful laws, and they're all there, brilliant, beautiful to protect us all. But the trouble is, there's nothing there to enforce them. And that was the other thing about the flag, because the true protectorate of the people is the Navy, because that's the naval, that's the true protectorate of the people in the lands. So that the Navy themselves was in that flag, and that the little black line around the Red Cross locks the pirates and Satan away from the gold and the money. Therefore, by them creating, they've stole that flag. And they've corrupted on a Queen's line so that they could take control of the money, because the Navy won't do anything unless they work for the money. It's he who pays them. And as the Rothschilds told if I control the money, I fear no government. Well, he fears no military either, because he's paying them as well.
That's right. I was going to say the Navy in particular, especially in the US, the US Navy is very much on their side.
It's all to do with the money. It's who pays you. So it was always about who pays you. So, this flag was, from my understanding, in my heart, how I felt it, was the one shot that wiped the whole thing out. Because there's a Queen's Corporation, which is the fictitious corporation, which operates in fiat. But whereas the King's Corporation would be with the real money that was backed, or say real money, but money that had substance, that had tangible. So it was the money with the 2 bars that was backed by gold and silver, which was in the flag, which was the King's. It was the Kings that created the gold. You go back in time, salt used to be the currency. You used to have shells as currency, because money's got nothing. The only true value of any currency is the labor. It's the
That's
people.
right.
Gold itself is only valued by the people whose valuable time that it was to dig it up. So it all comes down to labor. So you know, it's just. I mean, we don't know what the answers. The point is, but when we take this back, you know, now we can have the protection, because no one can speak the truth, as you know. I've watched all the time as I'm doing, trying to get in, and I'm seeing all the whistleblowers out there that are pointing out the truth, and I'm watching them getting picked off one by one, because you know there's no protection for them. So that's the whole point about bringing back a flag, so that we can get a meeting of the minds, and we can actually sit down and we can, because the brains, the knowledge is there, the knowledge is already out there. It's just that they can't come forward with it, because they'll be taken out by the same ones that are trying to take over the world, as you know, which is the cabal, whatever you want to call it, new world, whatever it is.
Yeah,
so yeah, that was my basis of why I followed with what John was doing. I understood completely what he was saying. Everything that he's got is got total, all his affidavits are unrebutted. All of his documents all proves exactly what he's saying. He's not just talking, he's showing the substance. And it fell in line with everything that I'd done my research on to see what had happened. And I could see therefore what he was doing was bang on. And it's still to this day, it's still bang on. So yeah, I mean, why I'm doing it with John is because it was all about bringing back some courts, a real court that we can actually get some justice in, because it is at the moment they're running amok. So yeah, hopefully that was a breakdown for you.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very interesting. And Andrew, we should also say you're in Greece, and John is in New Zealand at the moment, right?
Yes.
Araroa. So, and you know, that's something I wanted to ask John, if he perhaps wanted to talk about his background and the context here, because he's from that kingly line that you're talking about, right? The paramount chiefs, etc.
You there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, I can start.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
First of all, I'll just give you a bit of about myself, who I am, and what I do. Where I come from is Te Araroa, East Coast. That's the eastern tip of the North Island, New Zealand, where the sun first rises in the world. And there's a connection from there at Te Pito, right on the beach, a point there to Easter Island, Rapa Nui, and at midday on Rapa Nui, that's where my family came from. We were told by God to go and look for the sun from Rapa Nui, which is way across the other side, at midday, right on the dot, where 3 points on the globe, which is round, is shined. The sun is shining at the same time as Easter Island, where the statues all stand along the beach, which is called a marae, and then we've got East Coast. That's Te Pito. That's the birth of the world.
Naval.
God's earth creation. This is the side of my name, Wanoa. The Wa, W-A, means the beginning of time and space, and the Noa, N-O-A, is the law, L-O-R-E. That's in the Pacific Polynesians. The L-O-R-E law is God's law and spirit. God's law, spirit.
Wow, that's interesting.
W, which is the king's law of man, to make laws that get us commercial contracts around the world. So those two things, the spiritual side, the man, the God of Moai, the statue, that's what we use on our seals, on our documents, and Queen Victoria put the Moai, Big Moai, the first one, she stole it and put it in London in the museum to take his power away from the native people. And so in doing so, they went around and robbed every other native country, and took their memorials where their mana is, their power, to go to their God, and locked them up in the museum and commercialized them. So they commercialized the Moai, spiritual gods, spirit, and then they used other gods to go and rob everybody. So that's my connection. That's what I'm writing about. The history of me, where my family originated, the Wanoa people, to come to New Zealand, which is 6 a.m. right on the dot, where the sun is shining. First, it's midday, right? The sky, high in the sky, is midday. The sun is shining. And in Accra, Ghana, a place called Phoenix Hotel, right on the beach, it's 6 p.m. right on the dot. Those 3 points is God's title to the whole earth world creation. That I challenge the Vatican come up with something better. It's a triangle and a mirror image downwards, make a square, a perfect square inside a circle of light. So that's the title that belongs to me to tell the story, and go through another Zoom session just on that, nothing else, just on God's law.
It sounds fascinating. It sounds incredible.
the king's law, and the Pope's law, all the UCC of the Pope, he cancelled all his laws out of motu propria in 2012. He took his laws away so that you can't use it because it's full of fraud, he said, after he's been using it for years. And so he told everybody, no, you can't use it now. So that's the law that's used in America from the Pope, not from Britain. See, I use laws from kings from Britain, where they got the UCC all from. All the roads lead to Westminster, where the laws made all the wealth to the Vatican. So the Vatican had no admirals of the sea, and all those to Navy to go to other countries in their ship, and that's where the birth certificates and all those, the ship goes and puts the flag in the ground, says the land belongs to the king, with the king law, the man's law. And so that's where the king was doing right. He was doing a very good job, no problems. But as soon as the queen got it, she turned this flag into a flag of war, because it's a flag for the king to prevent anybody getting in the road. If you get in the road, we'll put our military on you, and got you out of the road between New Zealand and Britain for trade. So there's that part of the flag, why the flag is being usurped by the government here, and the Governor General and the iwi Maori corporate on the Queen's side, that gives the power, the mana, to the Governor General, gives it to the Governor General here, and then the Governor General goes and gives it to the Queen to use, and then the Governor General goes, the Queen goes and gives it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry around the world to use, so that it brings in wealth from those native people's land with this martial law of the king, to take him in. So if a government of a country has problems with its people, and they ask for the Queen to give them assistance, the Queen will say, right, we'll cause a war in your country, and we have the right, through this flag, of usurping the king's authority. In the first place, he made the laws to create war if you get in the road of the king's trade in each country of native origins of the people. So the Queen uses it all the time for everything, for human rights. They go across the top of governments, and they bring their government over the top of it and stamps their law and takes all your laws away. When they put martial law down, it's a king's law. It's the federal state of this flag. And the only king's flag in the world is this one. There's no other king's got a flag of so much power. And my people here, they call Maori, which is a created or invention of the Queen's little crown. And so she created this Maori tribe to make the Maori land her own, because she calls it Maori. And so she models out the Maori people, thinking they're going to get their land back, and they square the land all out, cut it all up, and put it into different titles, freehold land for making mortgages. All that's come out of the Queen, not the King. And so she's gone and used and abused the King's law to take everything off the people and cause a war on them, on anything.
Are you
your
talking
house rights and everything. This bill going through at the moment, the declaration, you've got this word, declaration, in this new act, they're just passing through Parliament at the moment. It's on the second reading. I've been battling up against it to go and jam them up with these affidavits I've got. And so far, they won't answer me. Even the Navy won't answer me because they know they've got a problem with their authority from a king, and they can't match what I'm doing here with Andy to tell the whole world that the king is got a problem with the Queen's Bench Court. That's when the law comes in. So I put another hat on, put the law hat on, and tell them you can't do this or you can't do that because I'll put my pound note on your head and debtor you, instrument debtor, because the Queen Victoria gave our native chiefs, King Tafia, a pound note. She gave him a pound note in 1888. So we can print the money because we've got a license through him. And that's what I'm doing just now today, is just throwing all these things back on Facebook, because I thought long ago, I think it's 2008, I started on Facebook. All the documents I put on there, they wiped them all out and started me off from 2010. So I lost all my documents and I had to start all over again on the first lot of things I put. But the thing why I put documents on Facebook is that you can blow them up and read them, and the court can blow them up too and read them, and because normal documents are 12 font to be legal for the judge. He won't accept anything smaller, so then you can carry it in your mobile phone, but they won't allow mobile phones in the court unless you say you're going to use a mobile phone instead of a whole bunch of papers they can alter. They can tamper with the information with a lawyer. With what the lawyer did for me, tampered with my documents and changed them so that he has the power over me. And that's how I was doing a court case, Cook Street, a native land title that's original native, the first native title ever done in this country. And then they wouldn't let me go threw me in prison for putting an order out for marshals, like sheriffs, my own native sheriffs, to go and seize the property, and got us thrown in prison because they didn't quite know how to do it. And so that's another story. But I'm just telling you the story of my life, or who I am.
Yes,
absolutely. So that's that part of it. On East Island, with my family settled, didn't come by boat. They went spiritually through the air, and that's the thing that one day I'll tell you how that works.
Okay,
and so they had the power in those times.
Very interesting.
The Moai. That's why Queen Victoria stole the Moai in 1868 and took it to England and put it as her prized possessions. Because when the king put the Admiralty laws together, King William III of Orange, that's 1689, he knocked out King James in 1688. That's when they started using the Admiralty law of the sea to use that authority to go to another country like Newfoundland up in Europe. They use an island, Northern Ireland. The British split Northern Ireland and put Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland separate countries, just like the City of London is a separate country in government to the whole of England, and Vatican City is the corporations under that. So that's another separate government from the government, and they can override the other government. And then you got Washington, D.C. That's the other corporate government that can override any other government. And so we've got Moai government, which will override the whole bloody lot of them. And then so we have to challenge what they're going to do about it. They haven't thrown me off yet. They haven't said shut your mouth, John. Don't talk about Queen. Don't. I got me in trouble when I went to England, and they deported me back unceremoniously because it wasn't me that threat, it was the documents, what I was saying. And so they just threw me out rather than lock me up. And we went through all that drama in 2018, dragged me up the hang, so they're trying to get rid of me. And then I got out of that lot, took a long time to recover and get myself together. And now I'm just coming right, just enough. I've got enough confidence in myself to carry on, even though the drugs were really tearing into me, my brain, and affecting my concentration and all that sort of thing. So I have a little bit of tinnitus, ringing ears from my job. My profession with doing this sort of work is a lot to do with law, and I'm a mechanic by trade. My full trade mechanic profession is diesel mechanic, heavy machinery mechanic, hydraulics mechanic, and all those tickets. I've learned how to think properly and how to fix problems. I'm here to fix the problem up and go straight to where the problem is in Westminster. That's where the problem is in Parliament. And the Admiral of the Fleet, Admiral of the Fleet, Michael Boyce, he's the main man that's got the authority of the sea going from England right around the world with these mortgage documents and liens on the land, and to go and talk to the natives, and if they don't listen, they just shoot them, and make the ones they can talk to, and pick them out and make them sign that the king owns the land, because that's what happens when he gets off his boat, the captain of the ship, which is what I'm acting as a captain on a ship and a surrogate king, as if I'm a king and of England, saying, John, you go out there and you plug your flag in the ground and tell them I'm this belongs to the king. You see, not the queen. She didn't do that. She didn't do all the work going around the world in a navy boat, and Prince Philip didn't go around the world and fight wars and all that to go and conquer all the lands. He just sat there and put a title on, gave himself a title through Parliament Statute Acts to say he is the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. So he rules in the Royal Navy, British Royal Navy, over the real Navy. You see? So it's all back to front. And now Prince Charles, just before Admiral of the Fleet, Michael Boyle, before he was changed his title to Lord Baron, that's his Parliament title from Admiralty of the Sea title, and so Prince Philip was the Commander-in-Chief just before him, to put himself in there to suck on the power of the Admiral for his royal family and the Rothschilds to usurp the Admiralty for their business, for their corporate business. The Queen's family of 300 committee family, their business, which is what's happening now. They're just robbing everybody. They're flying through this flag of war. It's a flag of war that all the wars in the world is caused by this flag in the wrong hands. So we're taking the flag because they silenced it in New Zealand. All the Maori people fly it all over the place for protest. It's not a protest flag. It's not. It's a business trading bank flag. It's a bank. And it's got a constitution, 1835 constitution. It's got a jurisdiction of a king in it because the king gave it to the chiefs, and he thought they were very clever and they would know. He hid it over here in safety, right away from England, right in the middle of nowhere, in little old New Zealand, and hid it away so that the natives could learn quickly how to trade. They were trading already with their ships, but they had no protection. And they were pirates on the high seas, what you call them, were seizing their boats, seizing the Maori, what they call it Maori, but there was no such thing as Maori in 1950 of that period. They only dreamed it up, like illusions. The Queen's side made this tribe Maori up and put it back to 1840 treaty. And everything in the treaty is a fraud, because the paper that they wrote the treaty on wasn't British government press watermark paper, Tucker, 1833 Tucker paper. Everything that happened was in the 1830 to 1837 period of King William IV, where everything really happened in the commercial world. And that's the period of time King William IV was a monarch. And so he did a lot of work. He was 50 years in the Navy. He joined the Navy at 8 years old. This is the man that we're talking about, this flag. So he did all the hard work, and then they swapped the kings and from King William IV in 1837 to and landed up on King George V. And that's a younger brother in the monarch of a male line, like Salic law forbids woman to the throne, but not in this case, because King William was on his own in succession to the throne. And so they put in King George V, a younger brother, and it's supposed to be King Ernest Augustus I, the older brother. And so the bloodline went down to Queen Elizabeth through King George V and King George VI, and to her. And so that's where it went terribly wrong for all the work and all those admirals right back. They set up the commercial contracts on these native lands way around the world, and it went all to the Rothschilds as soon as they got Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria in. As soon as they got Queen Victoria, they said, it was King William IV's niece is Queen Victoria. She's not supposed to be there. She's not supposed to be the queen. It's supposed to be the male line, and in the right sense of Admiralty. So they stole it. The Rothschilds designed it to steal the power of the Admiral and the power of King William III's Bank of England Act, 1689, I think it is, 1694 Bank of England Act. So they usurped, this is the Queen's side, usurped King William III of Orange titles and bank, and the bank, and all those acts are used to put them in a court, put them in a King's Bench court from a Queen's Bench court, and they can't answer it. They've never refuted any affidavits I put. And in law, like now, the sum of all your affidavits equals one affidavit. So that's what I did. I just threw them on Facebook, the pictures, threw them on Facebook all the way through from 2008 to now. All the documents you see on my Facebook site, 83 Facebook site pages, are all those affidavits. And I just pull them out and blow them up and show people how they did the fraud, who did the fraud, put their photos and their names on a yellow vest jacket. When we were protesting, I joined the yellow vest protest march that went around Europe and Britain, and they were using it. So I thought of this idea of putting the Queen's face on there because she's a fraud, and they've never told me to take it off. And I put her name there. You're not supposed to do that. And I put the bank name there. You're not supposed to call yourself a bank, a Moai bank, or anything with bank in it. It's illegal to do that without threatening the bank or the government or anybody. So I'm not a threat to the government. I'm not the document is a threat to the government of Westminster and every other government and New Zealand government. That's why they want to get rid of me and stop me from talking. And that's what happened to you this morning on your show. Go to. And I knew something was going to happen because I can just sense it.
Amazing.
So they just put a dot in front of your name and then it stopped my messenger from opening the app up, and and I went to try and fix it up, and so they got 1 point out of that. But then Andy's been very lucky with Zoom, because we're having our hui meetings, court, native, magistrate, King's Bench court meetings. Every video like this is an affidavit. It's a picture affidavit and video. Your lips are moving, which means you are alive. You're not dead or corpse in their courts. As when you go in there, you need a lawyer because you're dead. You can't talk. They talk for you, not in this sense, not with a video. That's why I'm glad that we have technology with Zoom, so that people, when they come into a meeting like this, like we have a meeting with people in New Zealand, a Zoom meeting for them and their natives people. Natives means people who were born on the land in the first place. You go right back. The one that was there first, you identify the one that was like Northern Ireland. I'll do a thing on Northern Ireland. Who was there first? Airi. That was the original name, not Ireland. Ireland is a corporate name, you see. So they corporatized the country and split it up in three. The British Westminster did that. These kings did that, not the Queen. The King. The Queen just sucked all the guts out of it and took all the wealth from the instruments. That's what I'm using. The legal instruments. You have to be legal in order to play in their court. And so they say you must put UCC law in. We won't accept anything else. So what does the Vatican do? And Pope Francis, in 2012, he brought out this motu proprio letter to dissolve. He dissolved all the UCC laws that America is using and every other country is using in their courts. And so you can use that instrument, the motu proprio, to tell the judge, you can't use UCC law on me, and the judge can't do anything about it. I'm surprised nobody's ever picked it up and started using it, because that's what I was going to use in my court hearing for Cook Street in Auckland on an original, the first native title ever put together. And so because it goes beyond 1840 treaty period, that the government here says you can't go back beyond 1840. And then I showed the tribunal, or the Office of the Treaty Settlements, trying to settle us out for less than 1% of the value of the land and everything, and say, so you have to accept it. If you don't, we don't have to give you anything. And so when I put this Mohi Manukau, a paramount chief, history in, traditional history, not conventional history that they normally use in their treaty settlements. This is how they get away with it. They use history that the government's professors put together, contemporary. That's what I was looking at. The word contemporary is research from professors. They won't take anything else. You have to use their thesis in your claims. And so they say, but our ancestors were here long before 1840. And so the trick they did was they used this flag of declaration of independence of a sovereign nation from the king to the sovereign natives, which was safe. The flag was safe at that period of 1835. And then the silly clowns in government here, the little crown, what I call it big crown, the throne, where the crown on top of whoever's there, you got no queen. She abandoned ship in our court. She abandoned ship and went to Scotland. They set up these Rothschilds and the Cabels and the Lucifers. They created this virus. What they're doing now with the COVID thing, and then they went through all that trouble to cover the Queen up so that she could escape and go into quarantine in Scotland away from the throne and run the throne remote for our trust business, our Queen Victoria 1846, 1848 Queen Victoria Trust account, where all the money is being flicked around the New World United Nations and the World Bank, that money all comes through our trust between us, the beneficiaries. We're still beneficiaries here of that trust, and the Queen's gone. So I've just put the laws together and proclamations to go and put me in to take her place as the head trustee. And Prince Andrew's in trouble. He's no good. So sack him, because he's got a lot of paedophilia and things like that in Epstein's camp and all those dirty things. And then the King and Queen of Spain, Sophia, is still the only one left, but she got her for fraud or something like that. And so the King died in Spain. So you only got one legitimate trustee out of 4 trustees. The Queen, Elizabeth, is the head of the trust, where all that wealth has gone through the Admiralty. And you've got Prince Andrew is the other trustee, and the King and Queen of Spain. So there, you see, whether you follow the money backwards, from the ship backwards, you end up in Spain where all the money is, and they're playing around with our trust money that I want to get back to the whole people of the world. And then I'm gone back. I'm waiting for someone to come online now in our court and speak up and tell me I'm wrong, or refute it, the video, refute the video of where that wealth is, because we're going to have an audit on the accounts of Treasury in England, not London, in England, and we want to settle. We want a settlement. That's why I've gone into the trillions of figures, and I've got pound notes there that we're going to make. We make pound notes. I've designed some pound notes as debtor instruments against all the criminals, including all the ones on the yellow coat, vest coat, and all those people who tried to get Brexit into the EU and dissolve Westminster Parliament. So all of that, I was with the yellow vest people, even though I'm not there. But at Parliament, when we went there, that's where we had the document with the yellow vest with all the names and the photos on it, and you'll see it on my Facebook site. Andy usually rolls it past, because everything I talk about, I'll flick them up from my 83.
John, I should interrupt. Sorry to.
So Andy looks at it and he can roll them while I'm talking.
Yeah, John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you've shared with us so much information.
I can't hear you now, but I'll
you can't hear me.
Yeah, they've cut me. They've cut me from hearing you. But at least I can finish off my story.
Okay, go ahead.
Me.
Yes, finish your story.
I'll finish my story about me. So that's the part we can dwell on. You can ask questions about that. Where's the wealth? Where's the Queen? Why has she gone? Why has she gone to Scotland and never to return to the throne? And there's Charlie. He's wanting to take Prince Philip's place. But I'm telling them all the time. I usually write letters to them that doesn't go anywhere, but it's on record. Everything I write in documents, I throw up on Facebook so everybody in the world can see. And they're the witness. The people watching the video, the people watching the documents and reading them are the witness. When they come online, they say, we saw that. We saw what you're writing. We don't like it. I haven't heard anybody say, we don't like it. Stop doing that. So far, we've had a straight run in publishing things to have a big case in Westminster. That's why they deported me. Didn't want me there, because I was going to have a court hearing. We had a court hearing in the Supreme Court where they all had their dinner or their lunch, and they were looking and staring at us having a court hearing in the building, because it was cold when I went over in 2018. 2018, the first time I went back to England.
I remember that.
So we finished our court hearing. Andy set us up to go and see, have a visit of Parliament, and set up one of the MPs in there, the ministers there. And so it was cleared to go into Parliament. And so, but we never got there because I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Andy can explain that. Why we wanted those documents to take to the Parliament and get them to accept it in person. And the 9 people, I think, was of us that I set up a native King's Bench Court, magistrate King's Bench Court, as if I'm a captain on a ship over there inside the building. We can have a court hearing anywhere with this flag, because it's got no bar to go into a dock, because we have a free passage through the world of a king that we don't need. We can have a court here and hold it here online or anywhere in somebody's house or in the shed or anything like that without any problems, because the big crown can't contest that. They can't contest if you're holding the flag for the right reasons, not for protest, but for the right reason. They can't refute it. They can't
because of the authority that comes down.
Yeah, I won't be long. Give me about 5 minutes and I'll finish. I'll let you go and then I'll
go ahead.
Get my redo the sound again, because they've cut you off from talking to me and hearing. This is quite regular with me and Andy. I have to go out all the time and come back in again so I can hear you guys. But I'll just keep talking to finish at least a bit about myself. That's another side of me. So I'm doing all these other hats besides the mechanic's hat I have on my crown is my mechanic title and my certificate. And so I use my thinking cap, which is what is spent lots of years, 30 or 40 years, just being a mechanic. And I'm 72 now. So I can think something out right to where the problems are and then fix it up. I'm fixing up a broken ship. It's a broken vehicle. Call it a vehicle, and go to where the problem is and fix it up. And so that's my profession, my real profession, and not so much a lawyer or not so much a banker. I'm a bank broker. I've been a bank broker, so I know all land titles. I've got a photo there of me in real estate in one of the most expensive places in New Zealand, Ramola. I was there right amongst the high millions of dollars worth of property, but I wasn't interested in money. I just wanted to go and learn the experience of being how they do transfer of land titles and from one to the other. And I investigated all the time I was in there. I was there day and night in the real estate office by myself with all the desks of everybody else gone home, but I stayed there half asleep, searching through all the titles to see how they put them together. And they were all fraud. They were all bad title because the Queen corrupted the Admiralty system. And now you've got Prince Charles, sorry, he's knocked off the Admiralty ladder as Boyle, the government cunningly, Westminster government, brought back out of retirement Admiral of the Fleet. That title, Admiral of the Fleet, is the highest 5-star Navy officer ever in the world. And he's in charge of all the Navy ships that go out with the authority to stamp the Admiralty and the martial law to seize all your land and your assets and everything and put into the Crown ownership, legal ownership. They own, the Crown owns everything from that 5-star Navy officer. And
very
so
arbitrary,
they bought him out of retirement so that they could use his Admiralty title and give him a new title of Lord Baron Boyce. So that's a commercial from the Admiralty, highest position, into a corporate business world, and gave him a position in Parliament, and the highest position, to join their documents up. That's what I'm doing here, is joining our documents up to him as Admiral, and not so much part of the Parliament, because he's in their system, and it's not through him wanting to do that. They put him there. They literally put him there so that they can carry on using his authority of their mortgage documents and certificates of title of the native lands to carry on their dirty business and the dirty money collecting with the Bank of England. Now, that Bank of England used to be owned by John Patterson, but they did him out of business and took over his bank, but they didn't take the patent to the pound note. And so they had 2 bars on it, horizontal bars on the pound note. So the Rothschilds put 1 bar on it so that they wouldn't have to go through the patent of the original pound note from the Act of King William III, 1694 Bank Act, and all those acts. I put all those together and threw them on Facebook to lock it in time for a big case. And now's the time to put all those cases and put them one by one up online and pull them out to try them, to try each individual in the line of the business, the corporate company businesses. So I can go and bankrupt all the corporate businesses in the world and put the money back into the people, back into the native people of the land. The native means the people who are there now, living on the land, who have been born there first, the ones who've been born there originally and the ones born there now, certificates. And so anybody else that's been immigrated from other countries that haven't got a citizenship or naturalized person, as long as they get the money, this crooked government there, they give them a citizenship and immediate rights of someone who's been native there for years. And there's where another problem is, where they're jumping the queue, the cart before the horse, in the legal sense, that what I go as a mechanic, as a qualified mechanic, I can say I'm qualified to think where things are wrong, and you can't find a researcher that can go this deep into investigating fraud. And rather than me going get a researcher to research everything I'm doing, they won't be able to handle it. Before 1840, appeared here in at least New Zealand, but when they designed the 1840 treaty after King William IV died in 1837, this flag here found New Zealand. The king said, well, I'll give you sovereignty now in 1834, before 1835, because a letter from 13 chiefs went to the King William IV, and then he accepted the letter and then said, I'll grant you sovereignty for your people right then and there, and locked it on that day, 20th of March, 1834. And then along came the other 35 chiefs and made them unite all the chiefs. This is only about chiefs, not everybody else. This is a contract, commercial contract between the king and native chiefs to model out for everybody else's native land. And so these 34 chiefs said, right, we're gonna sign here again, and make another fresh agreement with the king after your letter. And so they made a united tribe of New Zealand, but then they add some Boji Maori names to it, so that you can't say, oh, they're Maoris. But when you have a look, no, it's not native. It's not native at all, because you've got some of your white people mixed amongst the surnames of the native, indigenous native people. So they've got this trickery going on in the Queen side, where they design something to fit their bloodlines into your family, marry into them, then swap the titles over, the transfer of the land titles over, and give the shares, the most shares, to the Maori with the Boji or altered name to make it sound like Maori, but it's not. Paraoni is brown in white man, but he got all the shares. And Korimete, Goldsmith, he got all the shares, bigger shares than the little native that was there in the first place. So that's how they screwed the land off the native people, the original people. And I'm going to undo it all, then make the crown patch. All those ones I warned them what I was going to do, put a £1 trillion note on the head of all those people I put on the yellow vest, or anywhere on these documents and that I put online. If you see your face there and a write-up about you, and you don't refute it and tell me to take it off and stop doing that, then it's law. We make law. Contracts make law. I put them in contract. I put them in contract with me, with that flag, you see? And they can't get out of it. They plead ignorance, say nothing. The more they say nothing and ignore me, the more it becomes law, because it gives them plenty of time to refute it, and without me having to go to a judge, a kangaroo court judge, and get him to think about it, because he's thinking he's not a mechanic. He's not a mechanic. He's a law fella. And I know his law, but he don't know my law. He don't know God's law.
Right.
You see? So I'm testing his God out, which like the Pope. The Pope's God is a bad God because he stole the obelisk from Africa. That doesn't belong to God. God said, I didn't say to him, put it over there. They used themselves to go and cart it off the land like the Moai, the big Moai. Queen got the Topaz Navy ship. They're going to pick it, Navy ship, you see. They're going to pick the Moai off East Island, then carry it to London, France, New Zealand, all the powerful countries in the world that use that on their documents. Some documents you don't see it, but they've got it hidden away with this flag. And you're not supposed to see that because it's a private contract. Anything that's private is nobody's business. Like me, all the things I do is private business. Nobody's supposed to know. So I let the whole world know, you see? So this main chief, which has a one title, the whole of New Zealand, Mohi Te Mati Manukau, the fourth, he actually taught me, because he was a Freemason for 50 years. So I'm doing all the Freemason stuff. I'm not a Freemason, but his brain stole my brain, and then I thought it out, how to undo this thing with the Freemasons, because they're the ones that scribed the land, did all the survey marks and all that for the certificate of title to transfer the native land into the crown ownership, into the king's crown ownership, you see? So they did this in New Zealand. They modeled all the titles in the world from here in New Zealand of the latest transfer of titles. So that's what I'm beating them up. I'm beating them up over it when we get everybody in the world to suddenly realize where the cookie crumbles or the penny drops, how it all fits and works to save the people of the world. So there, I'm trying to do a good thing. If they only knew the secret was with the Freemasons and all the work they put together and all the work the Navy put together, those two instruments had the means of making a lot of wealth in the world for the wrong people, you see? So I'm going to give it back to all the people where it's supposed to go, where the king wanted it, with common law people, the king's common law people of the land. So there, that's something of me, other than showing you my memorial to Moai, and I'm taking stock of Moai and in my family to put us back where they've hidden all the history. The government here has suppressed all of this history of where the title came from. And they're silly. They haven't got a brain in their head. They said, 1840, Treaty of Waitangi. We found the country. We found New Zealand in 1840. And so I say, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You took this you took a declaration to do that. Now they're doing a declaration of the inconsistencies, amendment bill, to amend all the acts that they frauded to get all the wealth out of it, and then they're putting in this inconsistencies. Right now, it's on the second reading in Parliament, and I just keep jamming them up about it to prove their new act to take to the United Nations and this flag, usurp the flag, and they've got the king here of one tribe, Tainui, they're saying the government here, Jacinda Ardern, is actually saying the king of one tribe is the king of all in New Zealand. And I say, no, it's not so. No. You don't represent my Ngāti Pro tribe on the east where the sun rises. No. You got to prove that your whakapapa or lineage, what it is, it stacks up. But they won't show you nothing, because the Maori thing has been made up. It's been all a big dream, an illusion to fool people here and fool people around the world that this great tribe Maori is her people. The Queen says, Maori, they're my people. See, she says it like that. She says, I give you my heart. You see? And that's all she says, but she doesn't honor her word. And so there, just a few of the things. Other than that, I do a lot of acts of Parliament or Westminster Parliament, and I know them back to front, and pull them out when I need them, the right ones, for every offence. And so it's quick and easy. When you do a native magistrate King's Bench Court hearing, it's quick, it's all over, because they have to refute things you put up on screen and come on and talk to you face to face on a video like how I'm talking to you now. So I have to be bold in what I say, and everything I say, I know, I believe what I say is true. It's the truth, and it's for anybody else to say otherwise. You see, so nothing so far. It's been silent. All our Zoom meetings have been very silent because I got rules that forbid you from talking about the Queen or anything about Maori or anything. The Queen's crown, the little crown I call it, has dreamt up to put in front of everybody, and they believe it. Even the injection thing, they believe her and go and have it. Well, they're going to wipe my people out. My own natives here, they're going to, the chiefs and everybody that got fooled on the marae where the Maoris go, and they fooled them to take the big jab thing, and then they'll be gone within 2 years. They'll just fall over and mysteriously fall over, and they take the title of the native chief. They take the title off you for those certificates and carry on. What we're doing is taking the title. We're gonna take the title off them, and all those things if they can't prove it. You see, so I think something like that. What else am I? There's plenty of things, but I can talk about that another day. I think I've said enough for now.
You hear us, John?
Things I do. So
can you hear us?
Do is I'll go out and I'll come back in again.
Yeah, drop out and come back in.
I can't hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to disappear.
Yeah. Come back in, John.
All right. Wow. Well, I should probably tell people that we couldn't communicate with John very well because he couldn't hear us. But this is why he sort of launched into this monologue, I guess, to give us the information. And that's a whole lot of information, Andy. I kind of wanted to pause here and there so he could clarify, because there's just so much history and so many ins and outs. I mean, let me try to sort of paraphrase a little bit very briefly. He comes from the line of kings, right? Well, he comes from one of those old chief tribes. He's a paramount chief.
To bring it to the point of where John came in, was the paramount chiefs, were the tribal leaders, So the paramount chiefs were equal to the king. So that when the paramount chiefs signed that contract with the King of England, so that was a 50-50 partnership.
Right.
So those paramount chiefs, some of them, they was turned into Freemasons. They were given all that knowledge. So this knowledge was handed down to John by one of the paramount chiefs, who was a Freemason that handed him all this knowledge.
Okay.
And John took on this mission to bring back that flag to save. So he was given this knowledge. So that's where John came into it. Then he went.
So this is secret knowledge that only the Freemasons have. The stuff about the flag being the authority, and the flag being connected to that admiral of the fleet position, and the Navy being given the authority through this flag to sail the seven seas.
When he's saying, because basically what he's saying is when the kings went out and did what he's saying, like they went in, this is it, and they killed and did all. So what's happened. So they to take control of the complete world and bring it under the authority of a king, which is what he's saying is when they created that 50-50 partnership, that was the king's lineage, that's everything that's been done to bring a rule, because this is it, the one world order, which is an order that the world can agree to, and that flag could be given to the whole world, and for the safe passage everywhere in the world within that flag, with what that flag united everyone with. So it gave them all the protection. That was the Navy, it was the protection, and that was the trading. So any trading that was going on was protected by it, because everyone was getting robbed by pirates and whatever. So it's all about the protection. That was what that flag was. That flag was not it's being used for war, but it was to end all wars. It was to end all trading wars. Anyone getting involved with business, you couldn't get involved with business. And if you did, then it would be the Navy that came in and settled it as the protectorate to sort out the issues. So if you was ever getting into any trouble, that flag gave you the protection of the Navy, and the Navy would come in to protect you. because you was just doing business. So that's what it was. But like I say, when it's been usurped by the other ones, that's where they've gone. And then if you don't do business with them, they're continuing on that fight. And they're using that to create wars, which they should never have been able to do. So if a country didn't play ball, they went in and caused wars with that flag. And that was being used for the wrong. That's what he's saying. So the Queen was a third party to a two-party contract. The contract was between the kings and the natives. Yeah. So this is where they usurped it to use it to cause all the wars.
And that queen is Queen Victoria that he was mostly talking about.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Because Salic law also forbid queens. So basically, what it is, the 50-50 contract, ceased. It's because this they've usurped it. This is a third party. This is a third party usurping that, using that flag for the wrong. Whereas if we take it back, you can take it back to the beginning where it was, back to where the contract was 1835.
William IV.
Yeah, William IV.
1834. Okay.
And then everything that's been usurped off it afterwards, has been done in fraud. Fraud vitiates all. So everything that they've taken from the people will all go back, be put back into flag and dispersed amongst the people. That's what John's saying. It's
brilliant. Yeah. And so he's talking about some funds as well, taken from the tribes, the Maori. You know, I've had these conversations also with Lady Crown of the Purple Thumb community, something similar. And she was also talking about these funds that now the IMF has. And I think she asked Russell J. Gold about those funds, actually. He didn't respond.
Yeah.
But this notion of the funds, the monies or the golds taken from the Maori people by Queen Victoria and held by her in trust. That's sort of what he's talking about, right?
He's back now, yeah. Well, the thing was about the creation of money, wasn't it? Because money's a creation, isn't it? The kings was creating the gold, which then stamped into coins. They then created the money, which they then valued the gold with, and then they removed the gold standard from that money, and then it's just fiat. They took the 2 bars, removed the 2 bars, and left 1 bar. So it was all about, but the pound note is, again, the pound note was granted to the Maoris, well, not to the chief that John was talking about, to created their own pound note there. So they've got it, it's already there. That pound note was there. Once that pound note has been created, then you can pay the Navy. You can pay the Navy then to go back and recuperate everything that's been stolen from the people. So yeah, I mean, John would be the one to be on the clarity of those things. So John, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
When you was going on, because obviously it was just because you couldn't hear us.
Yeah, he couldn't.
Ramola wanted to stop you and just clarify and just make when you were saying so.
Go back over it. You can pull out what you think.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, over each thing.
Okay, well, you gave us a lot of information, John. Thank you for that. But it's a huge arc
as well. How the
sovereignty
works. Now they're going to cut me off again.
Well, let's talk about the money that we were just talking about. And he was talking about the money.
I've got to go back out again. They're doing it again because it's hitting a nerve. It's hitting a nerve, and they know it's too much for them. They can't bear it. So I'll go out. I'll go out and come back in.
Yeah, I can imagine that this issue of money or gold or people's trust is like a big deal. And
that's
sort of at the core.
Yeah, this is in the God we trust, and that's the God that they created, isn't it? So this is the whole point about it. It was always about
this is the whole point.
Rothschild.
It's about the money, and it's about this flag, and it's about power and authority, and it's also about deceit, isn't it? I mean, because they've deceived the people.
To be truthful, I mean, I'm in this to just bring back and correct what's been done. I mean, if we can go back to a position, to reset everything that's wherever it's all gone wrong, remove the filth, the wrongdoers, remove all that, and then like I say, the people now can, the people are free then to do it.
Well, it sounds fantastic, Andrew, but what are the chances of this actually happening?
Well, I mean, the point is the facts are there, aren't they?
The facts are there, yes.
The facts are there.
How do you push them back? How do you get them to, stand back?
Well, this is what it's saying. While Westminster's still there, Westminster being the highest court of the world, Yeah, because that's where all the laws have come from. He's going to go back to correct it, and if it's correct, they must adhere to it.
The last time he went to England, though, they arrested him, didn't they? I mean, that's the time we first spoke, if you recall.
Yeah, what happened last time was, obviously, I was at the time, we was being hit with the GCHQ and the 77 Brigade and whatever else, and they just set him up to be caught at the airport. And basically, what they threw him out on was technicalities because he didn't have any money. Because obviously, John's been doing all this of his pension. So they said that he didn't have enough money to come into the country because he was.
Oh, I see. They got him on a technicality.
He was going over there to help set up the Moa powerhouse, the tidal turbines, which was the hydrogen economy, which was from the tidal turbines, which would create the hydrogen, which would have been the water, which would then eventually turn into the water currency. And also was a beautiful plan that he planned out, totally environmentally friendly, non-hazard to the friendly. And hydrogen, as you know, when you burn it, it turns into water. So it was non-pollutant. It was it was a perfect plan. And he was going over to England to set that business. That way, he was there for 6 months. This is why you're coming over. You should be coming on a work visa, which he didn't need a work visa for because he wasn't actually setting it up. He was setting it up for the English. He was just being there to help them show how to set it up. And they also said, because at the time when he went, he always carries his case with him, which is his court. So he had all of his documents, all of his he had 4 terabytes, 2 terabyte of all of his information. So when he got to the airport, they held him there for 14 hours while they downloaded all of his information and photocopied all his documents.
Evil.
Yeah, well, all these people have been saying it was a scam, you see, because they called me for a scam. They locked my account down. They shut my account down. They locked all his accounts down. They took all of his documents, like to go through it. And this was at this point, actually, they did me a favor because up to that point, I knew that his documents looked great. I heard everything they were saying. It all rang true. But when they pulled him at the airport, there was 12 different agencies there, police there, shall I say, and there was also a psychiatrist there that held him there. They held him there for 14 days.
Yes, I heard about that. There was a mental health fraud pulled on him, right?
Yeah, that was pulled back in New Zealand. They didn't catch him on the one in England, but they went through all of his documentation, and all that they could say was, the information was a threat to the Queen, because all the information proved that they were all fraud. And
they said that to him, that his information was a threat to the Queen.
They said it was a threat to the Queen, and he didn't have those others. So those are the 3 points. And then they dumped him. They chucked him straight out and dumped him in Hong Kong halfway and just left him there.
Oh my God!
So that, to my point, then is when because they were all saying it was a scam. So when he went in there and they downloaded all that documents, obviously they couldn't find any scam. They couldn't find any errors in what he was saying, because otherwise they would have had him for fraud, and they would have had him for treason, they'd have had him for everything they wanted to, but they couldn't. So therefore they couldn't.
They couldn't rebut his affidavits. He said he had affidavits. Right?
Exactly. So at that point in time, that nailed it for me. Now it proved everything that John was saying was true, because they couldn't catch him on anything. All they could do was put him out on technicalities, saying he didn't have enough money because he was coming over on a 6-month visa and he didn't have a work permit. It was just nonsense, and so that was it. It was a done deal. So everything that John said so far is nailed, and they've never been able to capture it. I mean, when they captured him in New Zealand, they tricked him because he was in the library, and the policeman said, "I'm taking you down for a heart checkup, John. You're not looking too good." And they walked him straight in the back door and took him into a mental health fraud. I mean, and this is the point on these mental health frauds. They go in there, and you've got a psychiatrist that's speaking to John. Here's a psychiatrist who's allegedly, all his knowledge is on the psychology of a man. What does he know? What does his psychology know about what John's talking about?
Exactly.
The history of what's been gone down.
Yeah, exactly.
So the psychiatrist says he's grand delusional. He's got delusions of grandeur. Yet all of his documents has just previously been.
That's the only line they've got. Grandiose delusions. Oh, they've got paranoid delusions as well. 2 little treats.
So if it was grand delusionals, then why didn't the psychiatrist in England do it? And why didn't the police do him on any of his fraud? If it was an illusion, then it'd be fiction. But none of it was a fiction. They chucked him out of the country. So, you know what it was. I mean, and you know yourself on fraud, mental health frauds. How many mental health frauds? We've got John Patterson right now. He's under a mental health fraud. You had Carol Woods. You had this is endless.
Everybody. You had Edward as well.
Yeah, Edward.
Forgetting his last name.
Tried it on everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
They've done it in all of us. Anyone who's exposing
anyone who speaks the truth. Because
anyone who's speaking the truth, who's putting themselves on the line, who's putting the truth out there, they go after with their ridiculous, juvenile, petty, malicious mental health.
It's the minions, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't grant them the knowledge to be that intelligent, to be evil.
Oh, they don't have intelligence.
I mean, because what is evil? I mean, stupid does what stupid does. These are just minions doing as they're told, and they because there's more of them telling them what to do than when they come to one person speaking to them back to them, they're going to always listen to the majority that's being told them, because they're the ones that's paying them.
They run on ego and hubris and arrogance, and they think they're right. Except just judging from my own experience and running into so many of these characters and seeing their attitudes, they actually think they're right in what they're doing, and they're trying very hard to nail you, except they can't.
They're brought up. I mean, over in police, I can speak this from first.
They have nothing to.
I can speak from first-hand knowledge of the police in the UK. The police in the UK are brought up on the terminology of fox and the hound. They treat us as the foxes and they're the hounds, and they're out to capture you. That's what they want. Yeah. And why? Because people are scared of them. They automatically, because of their fear, they look like they're doing something wrong. So that just gives these police, because they're just after you. They want you to run. They want you to do something. They want you to be scared, so that they're after you. That's all there is to it.
So legitimizes what they're doing to you.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
They thrive off your fear, to comply with what they're doing. If you comply, you've given your tacit agreement with them.
You can't comply. I mean, it's only because. Well, John, you're back. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. You'll have to back these up, Andy.
Great. So
carry on.
Well, we're recording the whole thing, so this will just be published as is, I think. So John, we were just talking about this whole issue of the money, the gold from New Zealand, etc., the tribes, and how the Queen's gotten a hold of it, and somehow that's something that they're clinging to. And you're suggesting that there's a way to get that back for the people of the tribes and for the world. Did you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's right. The Queen Victoria Trust was set up for us here natives between Britain and us, because the pirates on the high sea were likely to pinch a lot of things from New Zealand, like in the time that there was no real law. There was France here and other people from Australia coming here and asserting or enforcing their own sovereignty from another country in Australia here, and France putting their sovereignty on. That's when the king stepped over the top of them and gave the sovereignty to the chiefs at that time in 1834, so that it could be safe. And then it all changed when Queen Victoria got it. The whole thing about the wealth that was already collected from King William III from 1689 onwards was stacked up in the big crown on the throne, the crown on whoever's on the throne succeeded. All that wealth from the trust and everything else that stemmed from it, from the trust, belongs to this first chiefs that signed the letter to take to King William IV on the 20th of March, 1834. And mysteriously, Westminster Parliament burnt down right on that time, 1834. What? Mysteriously. So Andy knows that. He can tell the story about that. But that's locked in this period of time. There are a lot of things happened with King William IV between 1830 and 1837. A lot of things happened. He reformed the Acts of Westminster Parliament. That's what I'm going on. I'm going on these reformed acts, and no statutes from then on, right till now, 2022, is wiped out on our King's Bench Court. So we don't have to go to second-hand law of the Queen's Bench side. Then we stick to the King's Bench side, we can go right back to 1689 and go back and pull the axe out of that lot, out of King William III, at our will, because we have the flag of free passage to do what we like on our land that they modeled out, the Crown, the Queen modeled out to go and rob everybody with the King's martial laws that take over another country and take the government out and put the King's law back in place again. But they won't say king, they'll say queen in right of the throne, sitting on the throne.
Is that the time that things got incorporated, around that time? 1834.
It was incorporated in 1689, King William III.
Oh, it was 1689.
He corporatized Northern Ireland as British owned.
I think they did that here in the US as well. All the towns and cities are incorporated around the late 17th century.
From that 1689 period onwards, they followed the format of the King William III of Orange native title of Northern Ireland, and then they went rampant with it. The Queen went rampant with it through all the countries, conquering them with the martial law side of the flag, because this flag here is a federal state flag. It's a Republican flag. Republic. We were a republic then, and then Southern Ireland is a republic, separate country from the Northern Ireland, which was split up by the British in the Queen's lot into Northern Ireland, or Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland on their crown, collecting all the rent off the land. The 8-point star on that flag is the Municipalities Act 1835 to collect the rent off the native lands under King William IV, and that's when that came in. As the Queen's, all the monarchs wear 8-point star, or anything with 8 points on it is the money. That's the money that they collect on the Admiralty certificates of title of the Admiralty into the land court of the native country. Then they converted and the land transfer, put the chief's names on it, the wrong chiefs. They put the bodgy chief's names on the title instead of the real chiefs. Then they used that instrument to take the land, to seize the land, everything, the property, your rights, your everything off you with the martial law. You see?
How do you plan to take it back then, John? Because you're also using the same flag, right?
Yeah, I'm using the flag that they're using, but the thing is, we've got the King's authority to override anything less than a King's authority. That's the authority and the jurisdiction. It's all wrapped up in the flag. Every instrument is locked up in this flag, and the bank. It's a bank flag as well. The trading
it's a bank flag.
Oh. Yes, it's a bank flag. It was set up in Helensville here in New Zealand. The first titles with this Mohi Manukau chief and his ancestor, Judge John Rogan, put the first titles in New Zealand together as a model for every other country. And so they used that certificate to model out every other country from the bank, the court, the first courthouse here, legitimate one from Britain, not Australia, Britain, because they put the Australian titles and the British seized them all and put them into this native court, magistrate, the native magistrate King's Bench Court, and put a clear title on it. And so that's the one I'm going on. I've gone back to the original King's Bench Bank. It was Araroa Bank. The name Araroa was a courthouse of John Rogan. He was a surveyor, land surveyor, Freemason, and that did all the survey on the land, put it in the court to transfer the lands in the court, and then they use that instrument to I'm trying to think now. They used that as a bank as well, because that started the Araroa Bank. The first bank here that started was an Araroa Bank. And it went to the Beans that they transferred when the Freemasons set up Auckland City to the bank went down there. the Araroa Bank went down there and changed to the BNZ, the Bank of New Zealand. And from the BNZ, Muldoon was the Prime Minister then of New Zealand, bankrupted the whole company of New Zealand and put that BNZ into the League of Nations. And then they transferred them from the League of Nations into the United Nations. And then they transferred it into the World Bank. All that money belongs to their stuff. All that money that's gone right from the Admiral, right through the certificates of title transfer, because I've been in real estate for a while, and I know about real estate and all how they transfer land and all that sort of thing. And then, but you have to search the title of original title to see who's on it to prove it. And so it went to the United Nations, World Bank, and then from there it got distributed out into Indonesia, Philippines, and to Spain, where all the money went. It spread. Queen Victoria put the trust, 1848 Queen Victoria Trust for us into the United Nations. Then they spread it from there all around the world. All that money, the spirit white boy that they're doing, and what's her name? What's that lady's name again?
Swiss India.
And Neely Berry. I've been talking to her because she's contesting the Indonesia spirit white boy, and he's supposed to be in the United Nations leading all this money, all this money. So one leg of the money.
And it's gold, isn't it? It's not just money like paper. It's gold.
Gold and everything that was taken by Admiralty law is now still in our trust. We're still beneficiaries. Like we haven't got clear of the trustees of our trust are the legal landowners, not the native on the paper title, not the land. They're taking the land. The Admiralty took the land as the resources and all of that, and back to the big crown on the throne. You see, so there.
So can you roll it back? Can you roll it back now with this flag and get those land titles back?
That's what we're doing here online. This is what we're having these court hearings for, in live, not dead. We're having these live for somebody to come on and refute me, for someone to say you're wrong, and prove it. So I'll just pull up the documents and put in front of them and see if they got something better, and see if the Crown of New Zealand and the Crown of Britain, Westminster, has something better. That's like I got the Moai 3 points of the sun as a perfect square inside a circle of light. That's the title I'm going on of this God, not the other gods they made up that steal those Moai and steal everything the Queen side did, stole all the memorials, and so that's against our God.
But John, but don't you think right now what's really happening is these guys who've stolen all of this and, generationally held on to it, etc., they're still holding on to it, and they've sort of got the power of the gun, right? I mean, they kind of use their navies and their militaries and their weapon technologies, etc., to keep people in place, and their police mechanisms, their military mechanisms. So how do you get past all of that?
We talked to the Navy because the 5-star Navy officer, he's the one that's in charge of the instrument. It's the instrument that is supposed to be for us. We're supposed to be, the guns are supposed to be for us and our trade between New Zealand.
So you've spoken to the Navy, you say?
No,
you
I haven't spoken. I've sent letters to the ones before Boyce, Baron Boyce, or not. I wouldn't address them as Baron Boyce because that's in the Parliament. That's on the Queen's side. I address them as Admiral of the Sea, Michael Boyce. That's the right title to our documents, not the Parliament's title. So
Admiral of the Fleet,
Admiral of the Fleet, Michael Boyce. You have to put the things on the document so that the document will legitimize what you're saying in a statement. Everything I say is a statement. So it's for someone to refute what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's the argument. And so I take that to Westminster, but try and do everything with the crew we got in England or Britain for the 4 countries, now Wales, Ireland, England, and Scotland. So we've got a group set up there and get it into organization. You've got to be an organization before the corporate will talk to you. So we make a company there, Moai Powerhouse Group Limited, corporate. So they'll talk to the company. So we made one here now.
So this is new. You've formed a corporation precisely to create communication between yourself and the government corporation.
And the Queen's company, she's got a company registered as Queen Elizabeth II. That's a company. Buckingham Palace is another company. These are all their private companies. And she's got Queen of Right of New Zealand as another company, and Queen of Right of Australia as another company. All those entities still are answerable to our trust where they're using the flag, and we have to prove they're using the flag. We have to use that. It's private. That's why you can't go into the Queen's business. A private contract, you see, not an open public contract. And
it's a private contract.
Yeah, private contract. So contract law. See, people go to know all this contract law of how they keep all their hidden wealth hidden, and that you can't see it. You can't investigate into their fraud. That's why they're immune. They're immune because, but we come along with a flag and undo it. We can uncover them all in one shot. We're doing it in one shot. As many people can see us what we are talking about, then they either press a lot of likes, but we only need sufficient enough people to enforce what we're saying on these documents into Westminster Parliament. If they don't listen, they're supposed to come to this hui, or what we call it. It's a meeting of Maori on a marae, is a hui, but it is a Zoom meeting in the sense to talk commercial talk, contract talk on this Zoom. And the next Zoom we've got on Monday, we'll be doing just that, we're just baiting it, waiting for someone to come online. And once they put their photos and start talking with their lips moving, it means they're live, warm-blooded people. That's not the instrument. It's live, face to face. We call it kanui to kanui. We didn't have paper in that time. We didn't have writing documents. We had contracts, verbal contracts. And so that's not recognized in the court. But when you say something on video, online, it is. And it's because the courts on prisoners and that don't have to go to court to save a lot of money and protests and all that sort of thing outside, they use video link between the prison and the court. So we use that as me and you talking to each other. And this is a court. This video we're doing now is another minute. I take minutes of this as evidence. We had a meeting of making statements to the Crown, the big Crown, and Queen Elizabeth. She's not there for me to contest now because she's not in England soil. She's not on England soil as a resident.
Oh, she's in Scotland?
Yeah, she's in Scotland. So that's out of the picture. And when she's supposed to open and address Parliament, Prince Charles had to do it. Now, that's not monarch in our sense, between her being a trustee on English soil land and me here on my land, and Sean Maguire on Scotland's land, and Matt Taylor on England's land, to talk about the native title, because he's native there. And he's English, but he's in Greece out of harm's way. But he can talk as Englishmen to stand on the land and talk right here in front of the camera. So there, we're fixing ourselves to the land first, the land foremost, and then the document. And then the document.
Okay, so as representatives of all of these different countries, you have standing on the land, is what you're doing.
From a model where a model was put together in Northern Ireland and New Zealand in King William's time, William IV. King William IV, in his period of time, joined up these two corporations, New Zealand and Northern Ireland, as a model. That's a model. And so I talked to Sean Maguire in Ireland and teach him how to do a native title, and I do it online. I'll conduct his court hearing.
Oh, brilliant!
I act as a judge because nobody can tell me not to.
So you're kind of creating new title, which is like the native title, which you're entitled to do because you're on the land, right?
It's not new. It's taking over the old title and taking on the business of corporate under a king's title, not a queen. So you're really seizing back all the queen's equity, wealth, and everything back into a native King's Bench court, where it came from in the first place, because they made the King's Bench court in Westminster silent so that he can't speak. I'm speaking for the king, because they still have to have a King's Bench court in every court in the world. They have to have a King's Bench court because it created the Queen's Bench court to get the authority from. If you ask the Governor General here, where did you get your authority from? She said, from the Queen. And so, where did you get your authority from, Queen? And she'll say, from the King. So where did he get his authority from? Oh, from God. You see? Yeah, something like that. Because it has to go back in a chain of events and a timeline. You have to string it all together and join all the dots to your title. A piece of paper.
Yeah, within that system where they have created that kind of title system and recognition through the title, etc. So what are the chances somebody is going to come on your Zoom and actually engage with you in a live way? What do you think?
That's what I'm waiting. I'm waiting for someone to step up with something better. I just want somebody to talk on how they're talking about God and everything else, but I'd say we don't talk about God. We just talk about the flag and king. That king, queen talk, king talk, because the queen is borrowing everything off the king. She didn't go and do all these things and make all the acts and all that. She just sat on the backside and just picked it up for nothing. You got it for free. You see? So we reverse.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it sounds.
You don't change anything. You don't change it. You leave it as is, but take over the lead lease, the head lease of every land in the native is lease only. You have to give it back. The monarch has to give it back when she's raped it and got everything out of it. It goes.
Okay, so that's something. You're sort of staying in the system, you're sort of looking at what's going on, how they're doing it, but you are entering the system, taking authority back all the way to the King's Bench, the King's Court, and to that flag from 1834, and you've got this process in motion. John, can I ask you another question? You wanted to talk about sovereignty a little bit earlier, and perhaps this is a good point to talk about sovereignty for all the peoples of the world, you know, and how your process is going to affect that, or what people can do today, because there are attacks on people's sovereignty, as we know, all around the world, and we need to give people some hope as to how they can stand up and take their rights and freedoms back.
Yeah, so the sovereignty really is a man's own, his own, he can do his own thing on his own native land without any British or anybody else interfering, but because they can't make money out of it, that they have to write on bits of leaf and tree leaves and things like that, and not on a document with specific laws. Tikanga law, the LORE, can't make money from their documents. That's why that doesn't work. They're not commercial. You have to be commercial. So the sovereignty is a commercial entity of the king or queen, adding up all your sovereignties in your country, then putting them under one crown, so that they don't have to go and talk to each other and find out who's the king of the sovereignty on your land, and then talk to the head. They talk to the head of the tribe or people or the country or the parliament in this sense. They got this parliamentary sovereignty of Britain is parliamentary sovereignty is acting and taking over the Queen's sovereignty over you, because all your sovereignties in the country is put under the Queen's sovereignty, not the Parliament of Britain. UK. So the Parliament sovereignty in Britain.
But the Parliament and Queen don't have sovereignty, do they?
What's that?
The Parliament and the Queen actually don't have sovereignty. Doesn't sovereignty for them derive from the people's sovereignty?
People have the sovereignty, but
people have the sovereignty.
They're taking their sovereignty from them on a piece of paper and put it in a basket, so that they can control all the sovereign people in one place. And so the Parliament in Britain has their own separate sovereignty of power over the Queen. That's why they use that sovereignty in the Parliament to help the Rothschilds, City of London, corporation and detour around the Queen's sovereignty to get the power to themselves and through their lawyers, and the Queen misses out. The Queen is only there for a head in that sense, just a figurehead, and because she doesn't have control, she has to rely on Parliament and to make decisions, and then she has the last say when she addresses the Parliament when they open it up, and she says what she says goes, but then she's advised by the Prime Minister what the Prime Minister wants the Queen to say. So they buttered her up and made her sign or consent to the Parliament, and so the Parliament's got control, not the Queen's sovereignty. It's the Parliament corporation, City of London, that has the right of the sovereignty over all you people that don't know. But that's the difference between sovereignties. When you're the sovereign of the land, it's only in a paper form, certificate, not something traditionally native to the land. It's nothing to do with the native people of the land. It's not business. It's only this has got business of the native lands so that they can help them to sell their resources on the land and pay them out royalties to the natives and hop the rest off for themselves out of the land. And that's how it works. That's what we're doing. We're doing all these things I had to know. I had to study up how they do it, how they take the rights and everything away from people, because the Parliament control. Even in New Zealand, the Parliament has sovereignty over the Queen's business of the Little Crown, New Zealand Queen in Right of New Zealand Corporate Company. You see how they use the Queen.
Yes, and doesn't this all connect back, and perhaps Andrew can also chip in over here, doesn't this all connect back to this issue of the legal person and the legal name, the That's name right. On paper?
And Andy knows that, but I'll tell you anyway. It's in capital letters. You're dead. You're dead, and they
capital letters.
They take your trust and use your name in another name, so that they own it, not you. And so they've got you.
That's right. And they think they own everybody's name. And this is the thing that perhaps people don't know. And it's through the birth certificate, right? The birth certificate fraud.
Yeah, through the birth certificate. So they own all those patents on the paper and all the laws, and including UCC law from the Pope given to the courts. And now the Pope's got rid of that, and nobody. You can challenge the courts now of UCC law for anything, for human rights, but nobody. I've never seen anybody use it yet of the Pope's law. I was going to talk about that, but that's another day. Of
yes.
how the Pope has raped the whole system with the Queen and that's where he got his wealth. If you ask anybody, how did the Pope get all that money from the churches? It's the churches that did it with their Bible, and then they gave the Bible to the natives. The natives studied the Bible, but they took the land and the money out of the land. That was the swap. That's what happened here in New Zealand. I can talk for New Zealand. So that's what they did. Preach that their God was higher than your own native God, and then they militarized our God and put them to sleep, and then went with their God and their Bible, and our people still think, hang on, we got our own God, but they won't identify it like how I do with the Moai, because no one ever knows that story. They don't know that story. They know certain things about it, so they dream up their own system of law to challenge the government. So they're fighting against the system with their own tikanga law in their own interpretation. They interpret this flag in different ways to the Crown. The Crown won't listen because they know in Britain, all the land registries here of this land, they're all in Edinburgh Magistrate Court, land court records are there. I have to go there. I went to England to go and check the register. Everything I'm saying is true. It should be right, because they'll leave the British Westminster will believe that title, not this one secondhand of New Zealand that's been budgeted and made up. In all the native countries in the world that have been conquered have been made together by that little crown and the corporation that's running the government, like Canada or America and Australia. They get their authority from where I'm saying it's come from, under this flag. You see, they can't get away with it. They're not going to get away with it. And if the trouble with our people here, They say, oh, we just want the land back. Well, then all their wealth, they say, we don't want that. We just want the land back. But there's nothing much left for them because everybody's occupying the land now. Everybody, bring the immigrants. They have the rights, same rights as the original, the native people of the land have more rights than the people who've been living here for years, or even in America. So that's what happened with abusing this king's documents and authority and jurisdiction. They flipped the whole thing on its head, and away they went with the martial law in the flag. You see? So that's how they go above all the laws in government like a takeover. That's what's going to happen now with the New World Order. It's starting with New Zealand, the first country, the New World Order, and the Pope in the United Nations. He legally owns all the 193 countries' armies. So how come a church and a Pope are causing wars in the world? It's supposed to be there for God.
Yeah, really. Good question.
And even the Church of England, they're supposed to be, all these churches, I say, they're supposed to be there for the people. They put them in Parliament. And so I'm saying the Maori God is quite different. And it's just new now. It's just come to the surface. And you have to look at your own memorial to your country that's locked up in Westminster to understand that one memorial is doing that, then all the rest they're doing your land. You have to search out your own memorials locked up in Westminster, in London, the city of London, in that city that belongs to the Pope, to Rothschilds. You have to search out why they got the memorial there and what they're doing with it, because it's not their property. They're thieves. You have to prove that they stole it and then use that against them and say, right, I'm here now. You put me here, so here I am. I'm standing here live to come and claim what is mine and everything that has been created underneath it in your documents and all your certificates on every other native country in the world, because you're using that one Moai for all the people in the world you conquered. You see? Just one, not a Buddha.
Yeah.
They didn't put a Buddha there. They didn't put any other memorial, only this one, because it's buried deep into the earth. They had to go. The thing that offends me is they had to go and dig it out to see what's written on the back of it. You see, so they've interpreted the writing buried deep below the earth to claim the whole world, and they read it and interpret it in their own language, the same as what they did to Egypt and those pyramids and those obelisks. Those, God says, build it here. Don't build it somewhere else. And so what did the Pope do? Pull the obelisk out that God said is a sundial to check the sun and against what time it is of the day, and then took it to the Vatican, put it in a big round circle as a penis of all things of abuse and a vagina for him to conquer all the world and their people into that place. How evil is that in a church, in a Catholic church? Now the Catholic want to take over off the Protestant, which is what King William III and King William IV Dutchman was. So they want to take the Protestant off Westminster and the Church of England. That's why the Queen ran to Scotland, because she's out of it. She's run off to the Catholic and the Freemason in Scotland, and then claim all the wealth in the United Nations when Jacinda Ardern, our Prime Minister, takes these people who don't know how it works to the United Nations to claim New Zealand first, and then they'll use that precedent case to take the whole world out and all those native countries that conquered, including ones they haven't. Everything with one world order, the New World Order. That's how the New World Order is working. I'll tell you in another Zoom how it actually works, how they take over the whole of the wealth that they've stolen to keep. They're the pirates on the high sea that I'm saying are the pirates who stole using instruments of the king and the flag. You see? So you have to prove it.
Yes, and New Zealand needs you at this point in time, clearly, to stop this from happening, from the UN taking over.
Yeah, that's right. I've put them on notice. I wrote letters to the government. I wrote letters to the authorities in Britain. What's her name? Holland, not Holland, Scotland. Scotland. She's in the government of the United Nations or something. Anyway, Scotland.
Yeah.
I forgot her name.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So this.
Wonderful. I think you're doing some great work, John, and this is absolutely immense information. And hopefully, you know, just the fact that you're publishing this information, putting it out there will send some waves through the universe and, you know, make the right things happen and roll back the fraud and the thievery and the burglary and the theft that has occurred across time and, you know, help everybody in New Zealand get their land back and pretty much everybody in the world get their lands back from the theft. Yeah.
It'll follow like dominoes.
It'll follow like dominoes.
One president case, it'll all the rest will fall over, and all the wealth on that crown. That's why the crown, the throne is empty. That's why I say the throne is empty, and no one there to look after our trust. And I'm putting myself in the trust by these people I put together on Zoom with Andy to put me in as to the trust and all that wealth that's been stolen. And prove that it's been stolen and put it back into the people, not me, just to people. That's all I can do in my lifetime because we're just setting this up for the next generation in a hurry.
Yeah, in a hurry. Yes. Yeah. And Andrew, any thoughts before we think of wrapping this up for today? This is an immense amount of information. And I hope everyone listening has gotten a lot of history and a lot of understanding as to how this has worked across time and what John is really doing, trying to get it all back.
Yeah, it's just who's in control. I mean, the corporations is in the wrong hands. Is the Queen's side of the corporation, is the King's side of the corporation. And as for the you know, because obviously a corporation can only contract with a corporation, so that's why everybody was, you know, there was a corporation created for everybody, so that the corporation could contract with you. And the mere fact that they never told you that a legal embodiment that was created for you, a person was created for you, a corporation was created for you, a trust that was implied on you. You know, these things that, you know, that's the whole
Nothing
point.
was told to anybody, you know,
Yeah,
and how they're using the trust and where the monies from the trust come from.
Anything that anything that the so-called government is giving you, you know that there's always a catch in it. And you know, same with giving you a lawyer, you know, the whole point of it. I mean, because you're all attorney generals. Everybody's an attorney general of their own person, but they didn't realize that they had a person. They didn't realize that they had to speak up for their person, you know, because it could only be their person that's taken to these courts, because it's a corporation taking their corporation. So when they're invited and summoned to the court, they're summoned because it's the dead, the summons in the dead, because the corporation is dead. The person, the legal fiction is dead. But if you can't speak up for your person, if you can't be the attorney for your person, you're going to go and become the principal and go in and then hire a lawyer and sign your power over your person to somebody else and become entrapped in their body, in their legal system, because that's the whole point about it. It's very tricky. It's very hard to get into your head to understand that, you know, you are not the person, and that person is actual corporation that was created for.
It's because they've incorporated the name and they think they own it. You know, it's through the birth certificate and they securitize that. Yeah.
The first law in commerce, he who creates controls. You control what you create, and they created that for you. That's why it was implied. It was implied on you. You have to express it. So,
so that's why we created. We put this Moai King William IV Trust together, and we've got to pass that in front of each other to take to Westminster to take over the Queen Victoria Trust and all its assets and prized possessions. That's what they call it in Admiralty, prized possessions that the King picks up. So that's what we're going to do something with the Crown and the corporation and the throne to re-establish and reassert our position as beneficiaries of that trust that's gone haywire. And the Queen has abandoned ship. She has jumped overboard. When the judge runs out of the court, when you use motu proprio, the Pope's law, the letter that he put out, the judge will run away because he's operating under UCC law. So I'm just teaching Matt Taylor how to do the UCC law, motu proprio, for his case on Monday in a short time, so he can apply it on the judge. and he should run out of the court and abandon the court. And what happens then is Sean can say, the Queen has abandoned court. The court is closed, and now I'm going. He can walk out. That's what I expect. That's what I want to do in court cases. That when the judge runs out, he has no jurisdiction. I have jurisdiction. That's what Sean will say. I have jurisdiction over this court, and there. That's it. Done deal. But he doesn't get money back. He's compensated for what it's worth. With a pound note, debtor instrument on whoever, the judge or anybody who you're up against, you put a £1 trillion note on his head. The crown, the Queen's crown, has to pay the balance, while the person that you're alleging is a criminal behind the judge, the bench for the bank of Rothschild. That's what they're there for. The judge is there for the bank, the Rothschild bank, to collect money off you. You can tell them, put a writ warrant on your head for £1 trillion and stick it to him, like what we're doing here. And so he forfeits it by writ warrant. That's what I had, Andy, a writ warrant on Cook Street, but I didn't go back and finish the court case because I had no money to go and pay the court fees, because it's high. The higher you go on the claim, like £1 trillion, the fees go right up. You're looking at heaps for might be $1 million just for the court case, to put a £1 trillion court case through. But it doesn't worry me because it's still commerce. $10, $1, or $1 million or $1 trillion. It's still the same principle.
But why do you need to enter the courts at all? Why can't you operate on the private and just put a lien on them?
Yeah, so we'll go private once we get. It's because it's a limited company. Moai Powerhouse Group Limited is registered in London, so it still comes under the jurisdiction of the City of London and the Bank of City of London. So you have to take it into the private and register and pay for the company again to take it out of limited into private, so that they can't inquire. But I'm leaving it open so that people can see everything I'm doing instead of going private and people not know. That's why it's wide open. That's why I'm saying everything a Freemason does, because I'm not a Freemason and I'm doing everything the Freemasons do. And because the old paramount chief, Mohi Manukau, paramount means king. When in the Maori term or the native term,
paramount itself means king.
Is equal to a king. So that's what I'm saying. The paramount chief gave me all his information of 50 years in Freemasonry in this place called Araroa, where they put the bank and the court in the one building on the same block. It's still there, empty. The block of land is empty, and this flagpole thing is still there to put the flag back up. And I want to put the flag back up where he was doing his Confederation of Chiefs. Now I'm in charge of the Confederation of Chiefs commercially, right from Helensville, when they first put the court there. The Native Magistrate King's Bench Court goes into all your native countries online on Zoom. And I do one for each country and do the same thing as what I'm doing with Andy in England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, and New Zealand. Put us together in contract, first and second party. See, we're the first. A king is the first party. We're the second party. Anybody else is the third party, second hand. They cannot go above those two in contract with our flag that's flying opposite the British flag on the Treaty of Waitangi ground in Waitangi as a contract. It's a contract, and then we got a video there of the Navy officer, the high Navy officer, talking to one of our boys and saying he's obligated to that flag and to that flag and the king. You see? So there, we've got him verbally saying it on a video, and we use that video as an affidavit behind all the rest of the things we do in the Navy. You see? So all I need to do is get a video with the Navy, that Admiral of the fleet, Michael Boyce. If he talked to me on video, that locks into the contract. It was already there from succeeding. Yeah,
very interesting. That's how you do it. You know, I recall having conversations with Lady Crown, and she was talking about the Treaty of Waitangi and how they recently found that I think somebody from the Governor General's office in New Zealand, or was it Australia, I forget, said that the other party was not in standing anymore. The Queen, you know, was not in standing. There are two parties to the contract, right? The Queen and the tribes, and the Queen was no longer part of the contract. So, which means the Treaty of Waitangi was held only by the New Zealanders, the tribal people.
So there we've got a scenario they're talking about, trying to settle treaty for less than 1% of what they stole out of the land under the Queen, and then give them peanuts or pennies for what's left of the land, and they're accepting it. The silly people here, the Maoris that is, not the natives, the Maoris, the ones who've been duped out, are signing treaty settlements, and that's the end of it. That's the end of their contract. That's finished.
They're signing treaty settlements with who precisely?
With the Crown of New Zealand.
With the Crown of New Zealand, okay.
The government's corporation company, Queen and Right of New Zealand corporate company. So that's running this country. A corporate company is running the country, not Parliament.
Right. Queen and Right of New Zealand, right? Yeah, I recall publishing on that. Yeah.
They are for themselves.
It's like Canada too, I think. Her Majesty in Right of Canada or something like that.
Australia. So all those corporations is doing the same model of using the Queen's head, as the people are fooled that she's a good queen. She's a good queen.
That's right.
And when there's all harm all over the place. And so they're using all those instruments to make money from their corporate in their parliament. You vote for them, put them in there, and then they turn on you. The Queen has abandoned her Maori people and gone away ran off from the trust on the throne as head of the trust. So we have to do something about it. When in a normal, that's the biggest trust in the world, by the way. What we have to do as beneficiaries of any trust is to replace the head of the trust and put a new trustee in. If they all say
replace the trustee.
Yeah, if we say so. If they say so on the Zoom when we have a meeting, and the chiefs already signed the documents that I've got that I took to Westminster, I don't have to go back to the chiefs and sign it again because one of them is dead. And so they'll all die off, and you've still got a paper in your hand signed by them, ready to go in a court hearing. So now we've spread the whole court hearing all over the world so that you can watch what we do. See? How we do it. And to go and do it, and I'll help them.
Absolutely brilliant. It sounds irrefutable what you are doing. And I think as more people understand, as you say, you know, it's going to become more and more understandable, comprehensible, and irrefutable for everybody. It's going to come to a point where they have to stand back, right? I mean, what are your thoughts, Andy, as we draw this to a close? So we've been talking for a little while.
I mean, that is the point, like I say, when that was the point when they stopped John at Heathrow Airport, that made, to me, it was incontrovertible. It was a done deal. Everything that John had said was true, because they never pulled him up or never did him or never said he was in fraud in any way. All they could do was throw him out of the country because his documents were a threat to the Queen. And that just brought him back.
They took photos of all the documents and all the videos. 14 hours I had to sit there while they went right over my bag of tricks in a bag. The books I had in my bag were all these affidavits and everything like that. And they've screened the whole lot. They screened the whole lot right in front of me. And because they wanted to pin me on something that I was a threat to the Queen and couldn't find anything. That's why they had to let me go and not lock me up over there as a threat to the government.
Right.
So these documents are a portable magistrate King's Bench Court in that bag with those books we had in the Supreme Court with the group we had there to swear an oath to each other. We swear an oath to this king and the Moai, and so did. All you need is these three things: a seal. All you need is a seal, a memorial. That's the Moai to the earth, and you need a king and a flag and a live man or woman on a video. Yeah, those all you need, and they can't do anything about it because in the courts, when they take a prisoner into court to try him, they've used a video link between the judge and the live man on the video in sitting in his prison cell as he's live. He's not dead. He's live. See, you catch it technically on a technical of contract law. He's not a dead soul as what on your documents. That's why I don't use documents now, because they can alter the word they're typing on it, or it's dead, And so
because it's paper, yeah.
It's paper, yeah. It can be written. Yeah.
That's the case with pretty much anybody in a court, though, right? Even in a courtroom, everybody is a living being who's standing in the courtroom.
Yeah. So the video of the prisoner that's sitting in the court on a video link on trial is live. His lips are moving. He's talking. He's making a statement, which is what we're doing. We're just following the prisoner on video into the court. So we're doing just exactly what we're doing here as a live court hearing, right in front of you and Andy on this, and I'm a judge of it.
Brilliant. And you said all you need is a moai, sort of a thing to put in the ground, a flag, a king, and a living being.
You have to have a memorial.
Memorial.
On your transfer of title, you must have a memorial. See, the Freemasons have got all their memorials all over the land where they have put it on high hills as being they're the owners of all the certificates that they drew up the title to cut all the land up. So they're
is that why they have obelisks sometimes in the graveyards and cemeteries?
Yeah. That's their title. That's their instrument.
Their title. The instrument
for the crown on the throne. That's their equity in designing the instruments to make money out of the land and the native people. And the church have got their own at the gravesite of the church. All those memorials with those people buried there, wherever you're buried, like St. Patrick is buried in Ireland, although he's a Catholic from Rome. It goes. You take the title from where he's buried, not when he was born, because he didn't in English when he's a baby. So that's the difference between the Pope claiming the 8-point star that they wear, the monarchs wear, and we claiming him where he's dead. That's why I went to Northern Ireland to Down Patrick to go and claim it and unveil his gravesite and claim that 8-point star back to King William III. He put that 8-point star on his documents. You see?
Oh wow!
So the Municipalities Act 1835 to collect the rent of the land and the leases, the fines, the taxes, the everything into that crown, into his crown, not we, into his crown. Yeah. So that's something.
Something to do, yeah, something that you can go and actually physically go to the land and you can sort of reclaim the land there. Absolutely brilliant. Well, John, you've got it all figured out, and hopefully the rest of us will catch up as you keep speaking and keep educating and informing people. This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation, and where should we leave it? Anybody have any last words to share with anyone before we close?
I'm cool on that. It's the questions that we need. People need to ask questions. I mean, it's very confusing for the people to say. So, I mean, forward the questions, because it's the questions to pull the information out of John's head so he can explain it. That's what he needs.
Brilliant. So send questions to John or post questions below the video when we post it. And hopefully we'll post it at a number of different spots. All of us have channels, I know, so we can just share this widely. And people are free to also mirror and share, right? Definitely from my channel. Sure. I always recommend people do that. So spread the video out, get the news out, because what John has to share is absolutely unique and absolutely major. It sounds like, could help all of us.
Fraud unravels all. We all know we're in a mess, yeah? If we can go back. I mean, the other thing is, like, prevention is the cure. So to prevent what would have happened, it would be go back to where it all went wrong. So you go back, you take the ship back, and then we can claim back everything, all the wrongs that's been done, everything that's been stolen can be put back into position. We can remove all the ones because they've all been shown for who they are, and it cleans up. It clears the whole mess up, and then we can then we can start afresh.
One more thing, Ramola, before you go.
Sure.
All we're doing here, as a final note, is mirroring the corporation and the Crown, because they mirrored us as natives.
Very
so
interesting. Yeah.
Mirror on them. And
you're using their system to remove them.
Them up.
Absolutely
I don't know if it means
brilliant.
anything, but I just see that Jacinda Ardern has now got COVID, allegedly. So
I'm sure that means something. Did she get it within the last hour as we were speaking? I wonder.
I don't know what message that's given out. So there's another one gone.
It's high time to say goodbye to Jacinda, I think. I think all of us can agree on that one. Well, on that note, I guess thank you so much for spending your time and sharing this information and this knowledge and kind of thrashing through it, because it's such difficult information. It's kind of going back in history. But as you said just now, Andy, it's a matter of trying to take the ship back, or trying to take the boat back to the dock, trying to find out where it all began.
It's a reset. It's time for the reset.
It's a reset. Yeah.
It's a reset.
It's a reset of sovereignty and, rightful power that belongs to the people.
I mean, and the king,
and recover the debts and the wealth that's stolen.
Yeah. We need to set this world right. And boy, this looks like a fabulous way to do it. So thanks so much again. Thanks everybody for watching. And we'll bid you all a wonderful evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you again another time.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.